So this chapter is all about statistics, which is the science of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data, right? So the typical steps that we'll see are to first of all just identify the objective or the goal, like what is it that we're looking for, right? Then we'll choose a sample, right, to actually collect the data, right? So you've got to choose who am I going to be asking, polling, surveying, whatever that may be, right? We're going to organize that data and calculate some sample statistics. And then we tend to use that to draw conclusions about the population, right? So just to define some terms again for us, that we usually can't ask a whole population a question, right? If I want to poll the whole school, it's not likely I'm going to get every single person to answer the question. And so we have a sample of that, we would say. So maybe just a class, maybe we want to make sure it's unbiased, so we just choose every other classroom we walk into, something like that, right? So just a subset of those people. A parameter is a numerical quantity that measures some aspect of my population, right? Then I get all the data on every single person, but a statistic is actually gathered from a sample, right? We usually estimate the parameter for this, right? So the sample is just a subset of the whole population, right? And a population parameter is everyone, right? Is everyone that you're trying to get the information about. So we typically we calculate this subset statistic, and we use it to approximate what the whole population might be thinking. Some more terms that we're going to talk about and is really the types of studies that we're going to do. So depending on what my objective is, it might make most sense for me to just survey people. So in a survey, you'll notice down here, right, a survey says the data is collected by members of the population regarding their characteristics, behaviors, or opinions, right? So as the example says, do you like the new cafeteria menu? Right? They ask a random sample of people, do you like this? Another type is what we call an observational study. In this case, people are just observed, right? You're not trying to make any influences. Maybe if you wanted to do this, you would just observe whether or not people picked it the next day, right? If you have something like that. Or in this case, the observational study says that maybe you're just like observing a group of teens using various electronics, right? And just observing, seeing what's happening, just watching people in a store and saying, what am I noticing, right? So an observational study versus an experiment is something that they actually intentionally done, right? So maybe, again, you have an experimental group and a control group on those. So one group is actually undergoing some type of change and one group is staying the same. So for example, this restaurant is considering creating meals with chicken instead of beef. So they randomly give half of the group of participants meals with chicken and the other half beef and ask how they liked it afterwards. They're doing something, right? They randomly give half of them. They do something. They're choosing to do something. They're treating the two groups differently and saying, how did you react? Right? So a survey, you're asking a question, right? You're asking that question. An observational study, you're just observing them, right? So you're not doing anything. You're just like observing. You're just watching what's going on. And the experiment, you actually do something and change the data itself, right? Change the two different groups of people, the experimental group and the control group. So again, our population is the entire group, right? An entire group of people, right? Everyone you're actually wanting to know. And then a census actually surveys every single member in that, right? So maybe your parents know they have to complete the census for taxes and for the government, right? A sample is simply a portion of that, right? So maybe you can't ask every single person in the school because people were absent that day. Maybe you pull every single person who walks in the building, but not everyone was at school that day. Now, my samples might be biased or unbiased. So a biased sample designs favors a certain outcome. Perhaps I ask people in an advanced math class, what's your favorite subject, right? Or maybe I ask people in front of the math teacher, what's your favorite subject, right? So something that has a bias. Or even if it's something like, you don't like country music, do you? Wow. Oh, I mean, do you? Right? You don't like this. Do you really do this? Whenever it's, you can tell from the tone of the question, right? The tone of voice, or even just the biased sample. So a biased question versus a biased sample could be a little bit different, but they're still important of biased versus unbiased. An unbiased sample is random, right? You're not just polling just the freshmen and asking something about the whole school, or just the seniors, or just the sophomores, or just the juniors, right? And on our control groups and treatment groups, the treatment group actually gets the treatment. So in this case, they did the chicken. The control group is what we call the placebo. They give a false treatment. They might think they're in a study, but they're not actually, right? So no one, if the placebo is given, then none of the participants really know which one, to make sure it's an unbiased experiment. Okay, so with all of those terms figured out, then I ask that you watch the next few videos to go through the examples.